You know, every single day, it seems that we're learning lessons of love, individually, as a community, and as a world, even though so many in the world aren't aware that they're even learning these lessons. Questions like, how do you love someone who believes something different than you? How do you approach a situation that feels so divisive with compassion and wisdom and love and understanding? I believe this is the only way for us to actually reach a true state of harmony with each other, is when we ourselves learn not to react so sharply and so quickly when something happens or someone says something, or political this or that causes, agitation and triggering within the mass consciousness. The choice to not react, but to just simply be present with all of the information and what is being said and what is being felt. When we're able to see past our own limitations in this way, we can actually start to see and fully empathize with where someone else is coming from. What place are they rooted in? And from a place of wisdom, from a place of understanding, it's okay to identify ego. We must just remember the wisdom of Christ, who said that you definitely got to get the speck out of your eye before you point out the log in someone else's. Because it may be true that someone else, let's say a circumstance, and I'm drawing on many different things here, not one specific thing, but when someone says something, they may truly be coming from a place of fear, or a place of shame, or a place of pride, or anywhere on that consciousness level chart. At this point, I assume most of you have probably seen that, and if not, you can check out some of the latest videos on our YouTube channel, which explains the levels of consciousness. We just have to make sure to always remember to look at ourselves first, and to be able to harmonize with ourselves. If we hear something someone else says and it triggers us, where in us is the low vibration that stops us from perceiving a higher truth? Because where we want to come from and live from is 1,000, or close to 1,000 as we can. Enlightenment, 500, love. Anything above the 200 line is good. Anything below the 200 line is also good, but it's a representation of a different dimension of thinking. When we think in this limited way, when we think from shame or pride or fear or anger, we're pushing and creating on the reality field, on the source field, in a very limited way. It stops us from being able to actually create in a more expansive universal nature when we're focused so limited or controlled by our fear or our anger or our pride. And I think one of the big things that I was reflecting on this week in this regard is the whole situation that emerged in social media this week, with Jordan Peterson and his tweet, and getting banned from Twitter because he spoke on the nature of pride as a sin. And Twitter didn't like that. Now, his tweet may have been caked in his own levels of anger and upset and fear and frustration. I'm not claiming to take any particular sides in this, but this is one of those opportunities. When we see things like this happening in the world, it doesn't matter what it is, because I know that not everyone is going to be following the exact things that I have seen and picked up on, though there are mainstream trends, nevertheless. The example, though, still remains. You might see a situation like that and immediately take one side or the other. The question is, can you harmonize it within yourself? Can you become so balanced and clear within that your own attachment to your perspective of truth melts away, and you are able to receive a higher truth, a higher wisdom, a higher love. It's in this way, through courage to listen to the divine intelligence and willingness to actually take the time to go deeper into your path, giving yourself more time for your spiritual practice and your meditation and these kinds of things, keeping yourself elevated and healthy, aligned with your highest vibration and your higher self. Only through that courage and willingness and following through are we able to rise in love above the waves of the chaos and the drama. And this is a very exciting and very beautiful thing. Because when we rise above those turbulent waves, we kind of coast like clouds in the sky, actually. It might be fair and accurate to think about it in this way. You're able to float above everything and have a higher perspective of what's actually going on, both for your ego and how you're reacting, as well as for other people's egos and how they're reacting. And when we understand the present moment to be omnipresent, stretching forwards and backwards in time, centered in this present moment with our physical bodies, but knowing that we are omnipresent through time and space, it opens up a pathway and an awareness that we can see that if something isn't right in this moment, we can see that it can still become right as time continues to flow. And in this, we let go of our attachment with grace and ease and benevolence and goodness and loving centeredness. We let go of our attachment to being right and having all of the answers, or having to have things be perfect in this exact moment. We often think, oh, it has to be this way, and I'm angry that's not the way that I want it to be right now. That anger is going to keep us limited from allowing it to be all that it could possibly be if we were coming from a fullness of love. We know this because when our hearts are full of love and we're leading from this place, reality is becoming through us. Reality is consistently becoming, perpetually. Think of that word for a moment, becoming. Who are you becoming? Almost as if to say that you are a lotus, but you're closed, and the process of becoming is the lotus unfolding. And all along our journey, there might be many different parts of ourselves at different frequencies, parts of ourselves that are basking in universal love, anchored at 500 in our spirit, or 1,000, or even higher. And there might be a part of us that is very easily triggered by X, Y, or Z if we don't have the right food consistently, or if someone says that just that one thing, it triggers us, and there's a part of us that's rooted down in 20 or 50 or some lower frequency that doesn't feel as good. The awareness to have both of those places within us, both of those, the compassion to be aware within. I'm going to re-say this. I know what I'm trying to say. The words just came out in a chaotic jumble. To be compassionate in the awareness of this spectrum of consciousness within us, the parts of us that are loving and the parts of us that are struggling, allows us to see in that lotus. Some of us is parts of ourselves are at the low vibration, like the seed under the water in the swamp that the lotus starts growing from. And there's a part of us that's just slowly moving up through the stem. And there's a part of us that's just peaking at the top of the surface of the water. And then there's a part of us that is the lotus flower actually blooming. And there's a part of us where the lotus flower is fully bloomed. And perhaps it is to say that the entire goal of the experience is not just to allow all of the parts to rise all the way up and to bloom, but to do one thing more, which is to transcend the entirety of the flower. This is the wisdom of the gunas that is brought forth by Krishna and the Hindu traditions. The three gunas are rajas, which is action, tamas, which is sort of lazy, ignorance and tiredness, fatigue and resting and sleepy and low energies, and sattva, which is a state of the lotus being fully opened, the state of inner balance, of harmony, of divine spiritual wisdom. But the goal that they say is not just to be in sattva all the time, because there is a time for action and there's a time for rest. But through sattva, through the meditative state, we transcend all of them. And all of them become transformed. We become the complete flower and transcend the flower itself. And we do this through our daily practice of meditation and prayer. And it's through meditation and prayer that we can find so much peace, so much wisdom, so much love, so much harmony. I honestly have never really used Twitter much in my life, and all of a sudden this past week, I've just started dropping thoughts in there, just even funny things that come to my mind, and I'm like, that's a tweet. There was one, the reason I bring this up, because there was one that I wrote, you guys, meditation is just the best thing. Y'all don't even know what you're missing. It seemed very relevant, and it's true. Those who don't practice meditation or prayer or taking some time for inner stillness every single day, and I'm speaking from my own experience of the ignorance that I was in from simply not taking that time, I can see such a clear difference. Even if you don't want to meditate, those are the best times to do it, the best times to pray, the best time to connect with the invisible. Is when we take time to listen to the invisible listens to us, and we draw closer to God, and God draws closer to us. It's an offering to Brahman, as it's known in the Hindu tradition. But Brahman is the supreme absolute reality, the allness of everything. By taking the time to pray, taking the time to show up to this event today, we are offering our time and our space to Brahman, to the supreme absolute reality. We are offering this smoke to God. We are offering this to the space that we share with each other. And this is the last thing I'd like to speak about this morning before we pray, meditate, and read, is to simply speak on the nature, the value, and the joy of community. That Spirit Mysteries, when it started, was more about the courses and the information. My dear friend Hayden, who I believe is here with us today, spoke on this just yesterday, actually, of saying that, in his connection with Thoth, he understood the mystery school as a vault, a sacred tome of record-keeping information, sacred things that we can use to learn, to grow, to evolve our consciousness. And this is part of the value of this. But as the community, as the school has evolved, it also has become a part of community. And there's always been and had a community aspect. But today, especially with this new platform, we find ourselves having a very bright and shining community, like a very both active and sometimes chaotic and very interesting community. But it's a community nonetheless. And as we draw closer to each other in the redefinition of the mystery school, as we take that vault consciousness and merge it with the community, the school, the campus consciousness to a greater degree, and invite members to come and teach, as we're doing as well with the Initiate Great Hall, as you can now create events, we start to change the formula. We start to evolve the formula of what it is that we really have here. And we'll do this by connecting with each other to greater degrees and getting to know each other to greater degrees.